Stop acting so high and mighty.
After being called out on her work behavior, the boss's daughter started giving me a hard time the next day. Your presence is really getting on my nerves. Get a clue, old woman. Day after day of harassment wore me down, and her words led me to decide to retire early. However, things took a turn when our boss returned from an overseas trip. What the hell is going on? Why isn't she here? His words left his daughter dumbfounded. My name is Alice Ives. I've been working as an office worker at a local company since I graduated high school, and I've been there for 40 years now. A few colleagues who joined the company the same year I did left after getting married or switched to other jobs. Before I knew it, I was the oldest employee at the company. During that time, the company changed hands, and now David Turner, the son of our former CEO, is running the show. As the longest-serving employee, I often found myself fielding questions from other employees. Hey Alice, can you look over these documents for our meeting with the client? Or personal problems like,
I had a fight with my husband last night. I know I'm the one at fault, but I just can't bring myself to apologize. What should I do?
I've always enjoyed listening to people's stories, so I guess I was an easy person to talk to. There were many times when people thanked me for lending an ear, saying it really helped them clear their heads, and at some point I started being called the workplace mom. It's a little embarrassing, but it feels good to be relied upon. I had absolutely adored the homely atmosphere of our company and had resolved to dedicate myself to it until retirement. However, a dramatic change occurred in this harmonious workplace. During the months that our CEO was on an overseas trip, his daughter, Megan Turner, joined the company. After completing her training at one of our branches, she transferred to the head office administration department. At first, everyone was welcoming, and I was excited too, but it didn't take long for people to become fed up with her behavior. Megan severely lacked manners and common sense as a grown adult. She flaunted her status as the boss's daughter and didn't bother to do her job right. She was transferred here with the title of Assistant Section Chief, which she apparently forced upon the executives. No matter how much she's the boss's daughter, I felt disappointed in the executives who bowed to the demands of a second-year employee, but I couldn't voice such things. I wondered if the boss knew about this. It's hard to believe that our sincere boss would condone such behavior, or maybe he just allowed her to do as she pleased because of his paternal affection. In any case, Megan caused considerable confusion with her selfish actions. Her behavior started to delay our work and affect our schedules, and the dissatisfaction among other employees kept piling up. Most of the consultations I received were about Megan.
Megan, she's just awful. She complains about her work, saying it's sloppy and half-hearted, but she doesn't do anything herself.
And you know what? She was actually preparing a document for a client the other day. It was so unusual that I looked over her shoulder, and it was full of mistakes. I couldn't let it be submitted like that, so I secretly corrected it for her.
Well, that's how it went. The executives couldn't even scold her properly because she was the boss's daughter and they were no help at all. The atmosphere in the company started to turn sour, and I feared that this could lead to a serious problem. Despite our concerns, Megan's reckless behavior did not change.
Miss Ives, I think I might quit this job.
Some people even started saying things like that. I knew something had to be done. The boss wouldn't be back for a while, and I couldn't wait that long. I figured I had to be the one to confront her since the executives were too timid. An opportunity soon came up. Megan was fiddling with her smartphone during work hours. If she did it sneakily, I could have been somewhat endearing, but she was doing it blatantly. Everyone around her had a look on their face that said, "Do your job." I approached Megan and said, "Miss Turner, it's time for work now. It's not the time to be playing with your phone, is it?" Megan looked surprised and raised her face, making a questioning face.
Look around.
Everyone's working. Don't you think it's strange that you're the only one playing on your phone? She scowled even more.
I'm our CEO's daughter, you know. You think you can talk to me like that?
I sighed inwardly. Knowing that it wouldn't be easy to get through to her, that doesn't matter, for as long as you're being paid by the company, shouldn't you be working? Megan glared at me with a red face, then suddenly slammed her desk and stood up.
You're annoying. Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty?
The other employees were holding their breath, watching us. I'm just saying what's right. If you think I'm annoying, it's probably because you know you're doing something wrong, isn't it? I didn't know if I managed to sound firm, but at least I said what needed to be said. After all, I'm not suited for giving sermons. Megan glared at me for a while, then said in a strained voice,
"Just remember this, I'll make you regret talking to me like that."
With that, she turned her back and walked out. For a while, everyone was silent, unable to move or speak. Then someone said, "Miss Ives, that was amazing," and the others started to talk.
Well done, Miss Ives.
Really, it was a refreshing sight.
I just vaguely smiled back in response. I didn't think I said anything wrong, but there was no doubt that I had hurt her. I regretted not considering my words and location a bit more, but a shocking event awaited me that would sweep away this small regret. Megan, who had been humiliated in front of everyone, started to harass me.
"Miss Ives, please finish all this work by today,"
she said, dumping a large amount of work on me. Most of it wasn't urgent, and there was no need to finish it today. It was such a childish retaliation. Other employees offered to help when they couldn't bear to watch, but Megan didn't allow it. The workload was too large for one person to finish, so of course it meant working overtime.
Seeing that, Megan spoke with a triumphant look.
You work slow for someone who talks big, Miss Ives. Make sure you finish everything before you leave, okay?
And so it continued. I kept myself going somehow, but the immense daily work, overtime, and insults almost broke me. Megan was probably waiting for my spirit to break. Seeing me weaken, she said, "You're just a nuisance. Wake up, Grandma." Seeing her face, I thought, this is it. I can't stay here anymore, in a place where someone hates me so much. I had planned to persevere until retirement, but I now decided to retire early. I submitted my retirement notice, and on my last day, while I was sorting out my things, other employees spoke to me.
Miss Ives, I'm so sorry we couldn't help.
Everyone looked apologetic. It's okay, I made this decision myself. Most importantly, keep your spirits up and do your best. As everyone was saying their goodbyes, Megan came in.
Stop chit-chatting and get back to work, everyone. She's no longer a part of this company.
None of the employees responded and just looked at Megan with cold eyes. Then they said to me, in chorus, "Take care," and walked past Megan. Megan's reputation was already bad, but after forcing me into retirement, her position worsened even further. She didn't seem to realize it and still acted like a queen. Approaching me, Megan smirked.
This is what happens when you go against me. Serves you right.
To that, I simply bowed my head and quietly said, "Thank you for everything." I couldn't forget the scornful look Megan gave me at the end, even after I left the company. I am genuinely curious to know how she ended up being like this. With that attitude, she'll only push people away. My family worried about me after I lost my spirit after leaving the company, but my heart was still heavy. One day, while I was aimlessly passing time, I received a call from President Turner. When I answered, wondering what it was about, he immediately started apologizing with tremendous force.
"Miss Ives, I'm so sorry.
I was speechless for a moment because of the suddenness.
My daughter did something terrible to you. I'm really sorry. I can't blame you if you're angry."
It seemed like the president thought I was angry and not speaking. "Sir, please calm down. I'm fine." When I said that, the president's voice on the other end of the call seemed to calm down a little.
"I know it might be too late to ask this, but would you consider coming back to the company? I won't let my daughter do as she pleases anymore."
For the moment, setting aside whether I should return or not, I agreed to make a visit to the company. The next day when I arrived at the company, the employees who spotted me quickly ran over. They filled me in on what had happened. The CEO, having returned from his overseas business trip, had noticed the unusual atmosphere hanging over the office. He wanted to hear from me about it, but I wasn't there. When he heard from the employees about Megan's behavior while he was away, he was furious. "Megan, what is this all about? Why is Miss Ives not here?" Megan, perhaps not expecting to be scolded, snapped back at her father.
It's that old hag's fault for lecturing me. Everyone else thinks so too. They all disrespect me, the president's daughter, and take me for granted.
The CEO shouted even more at Megan's selfish response. "Enough! Just because you're my daughter doesn't mean you're entitled to behave like this. And what's this about being an assistant section chief? I don't remember assigning you to such a role. How dare you make up your own title?" Stammering in her response, Megan was caught off guard. It seemed the president immediately called me after. After ending the call, the president gathered the employees and apologized in front of everyone for his daughter's misconduct. I was concerned about Megan after hearing everything. "So how is Miss Turner doing now?"
Her title was revoked. She's now in the CEO's office, having been summoned by him.
I said goodbye to the employee who gave me the information and headed for the president's office. There, Megan was being scolded by the president. When the president noticed me, he came over and deeply bowed his head. "Miss Ives, I'm truly sorry for this incident. Due to my incompetence, I've caused you trouble." "Mr. Turner, please raise your head. It's all right." "No, we need to make things clear." The president urged Megan, who was standing next to him, to apologize as well. Megan looked utterly crestfallen, as if salt had been rubbed in her wounds, muttered, I'm sorry." Not knowing what to say, I remained silent until the president spoke. "I know it's a bit much to ask, Miss Ives, but could you return to the company? We need your expertise." The CEO was nearly on the verge of tears. Seeing him like that brought back old memories. I first met the president 40 years ago when I had just joined the company. He was still in middle school at the time. Since we were close in age, he found it easy to talk to me. He often came to the company to hang out and frequently sought advice from me about school, friends, future plans. Back then, we used to call each other by our first name. He looked up to me like an older sister, and I regarded him as a younger brother. That relationship remained unchanged as we grew up, and I've been his confidant in many matters since he joined the company. "All right, but please stop apologizing." Unable to flatly reject the president's request, I decided to return to the company. "I'm so relieved. Truly relieved." The CEO was rejoiced at my decision, but Megan, standing next to him, had a complex expression on her face. Well, that's expected. The person she disliked and caused to quit was coming back. Upon my return to the company, I was given the role of an advisor. Everyone welcomed me warmly, with some even tearing up at my return. It was a joyful moment, but there was one thing that bothered me. Of course, it was about Megan. She had been quiet and isolated since being scolded by the CEO.
Given her attitude up till now, it was understandable. Despite my hesitation, I decided to talk to her. Miss Turner, can we talk for a second? She briefly raised her eyes to meet mine, but then quickly averted her gaze. I want to talk to you for a bit. Without waiting for her agreement, I began, and she reluctantly got up and followed me. What should I start with? As I thought, Megan spoke up first. What do you want? Her voice was visibly sullen, but I was relieved that she at least agreed to talk. It seems like you're not getting along with others. Without adding unnecessary comments, I simply stated, and Megan looked down in silence. I don't understand why someone as smart as you would treat everyone around you like that. You knew you were antagonizing them, didn't you? How can you know whether I'm smart or not? Megan retorted, but her voice lacked any spirit. I do know. Your father always bragged about you. Megan looked up surprised. It was true. Mr. Turner adored his daughter very much and was always proud of her. My daughter is beautiful and intelligent. Everyone in the company heard him say that often, and we all knew how much he loved her. Besides, you might not remember, but we've met before. Megan looked even more surprised. This company, now big enough to have branch offices, used to be a small family-run business. I had a good relationship with not just the current CEO, but also his father, the former CEO, and his wife. They were there to celebrate my wedding and childbirth, and when the president got married and Megan was born, I rushed to the hospital to celebrate her birth. We used to be close like family until she entered elementary school. Suddenly, something seemed to strike Megan's memory. Aunt Alice? At the nostalgic address, I found myself smiling involuntarily. That's right. Little Megan was an adorable child who would always cling to Aunt Alice whenever I visited. Do you remember Megan? Megan nodded over and over again. I remember Aunt Alice who used to play with me when I was little, but since I entered elementary school, Aunt Alice stopped coming home. That's right. Around the time your father took over, he became very busy, and I also had children and other things, so I couldn't visit your place anymore. Such nostalgic times. Back then, as our company was expanding, the CEO was incredibly busy. He didn't even have time to return home and often stayed at the company. As we continued to be busy, we became distant without realizing. I was sad when Aunt Alice stopped coming over. Dad was also hardly home. Megan continued, her expression as innocent as it was in the past. I asked Mom when will Aunt Alice come home next, but she told me Aunt Alice is busy now and can't come. Be a good girl and wait patiently. I see. I'm sorry for making you feel lonely. So I behaved well and studied hard. I thought if I did, Aunt Alice would come to see me. Tears started to fall from Megan's eyes. Then, as if regaining the honesty of her childhood, she started to tell me about various things that had happened to her. The time she was scolded at a branch office during her training after joining the company because she couldn't work well. How she had never been scolded before and in her panic had inadvertently used her status as the CEO's daughter, which made things irreparable. Since then, everyone started fearing her and she couldn't be trained right. Now she had a hard time getting a grasp of her job. Without the title of being the CEO's daughter, she would just be a person who couldn't do her job right. She was scared, and this led to a vicious cycle of resorting to using her title again. I stroked Megan's back as she wept while telling her story. I'm sorry, I should have listened to you sooner. I'm sorry it took me this long. Megan lifted her tear-soaked face. Aunt Alice, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a bad girl. No, Megan, you're a good girl. You just made a little mistake. It's okay. We will fix it together from now on. I held sobbing Megan's shoulder and continued to stroke her head for a while. Since that day, Megan had changed astonishingly. She realized that to gain recognition from those around her, she needed to build trust through her strength, not her title. Seeing Megan open up to me, the other employees started to approach her little by little. Seeing this, it seemed that Mr. Turner was relieved.
Miss Ives, I can't thank you enough. You've been a tremendous help to both generations of our family. No, to the entire company.
Please don't praise me too much. I just want to be of help to the younger generation. Then Mr. Turner jested with a tone reminiscent of his younger days.
As expected of our company mother, we look forward to your continued support.
I returned a smile to the president. There are only a few years left until my retirement. Until then, in this place, I'll continue to be everyone's mother. I made up my mind once again.